Usually, after committing a crime, perpetrators immediately flee the scene. However, there are exceptions. Some killers not only stay behind, but blend into the crowd to watch police investigate their own crimes. Today, we'll explore such a case from Taiwan, one so disturbing it was later adapted into a horror film called White Lies, Black Lies in 2015. On a fateful afternoon in August 1967, residents of Taipei's Wanhua district witnessed a startling scene. A man, drenched in sweat, burst into the local police station. His name was Jiang Jingyan, and between labored breaths, he began telling a story that would leave every officer in the station stunned. "Last night, I was forced to help bury 2 bodies," Jingyan blurted out, immediately drawing the officer's full attention. As his story unfolded, a horrifying crime came to light. At Chikai Art Garden, a mannequin factory located at 51 Kangding Road, the owner, Wang Wenmin, had murdered both his wife and an apprentice. Jingyan claimed he had been coerced into helping dispose of the bodies, which were now buried in the factory's basement. Initially, the police were skeptical of this bizarre claim. The idea of real bodies being buried in a factory that made artificial ones seemed like something out of a horror movie. Moreover, Kangding Road was in one of Taipei's busiest commercial districts. Who would dare commit murder and conceal bodies in such a crowded area? What made the officers even more suspicious was Jingyan's behavior. For someone claiming to be an accomplice, he seemed unusually eager to confess. The officers also noticed something off about his demeanor. He didn't seem entirely mentally stable. Despite their doubts, the police had to investigate. They brought Jingyan to Chikai Art Garden, a 4-story building where each floor served a different purpose. A beauty salon on the 2nd floor, residential apartments on the 3rd and 4th floors, and the mannequin factory occupying both the ground floor and basement. According to neighboring businesses, the factory was highly successful, supplying mannequins to fashion stores throughout Taiwan. They operated almost constantly, rarely closing even on holidays. That's why it struck everyone as odd when 2 days earlier, owner Wenman had suddenly announced the factory would be closed, posting a "Closed Today" sign on the door, something completely out of character. When the investigation team arrived, several reporters were already on scene. After repeatedly knocking with no response, the police were forced to break down the door. As soon as the door gave way, police and reporters flooded into the building. The ground floor featured a display window containing 6 plastic mannequins. Though officers thoroughly searched this level, they found no bloodstains or signs of struggle. Finding nothing on the main floor, the group descended to the basement, where Jingyan claimed the bodies were buried. The scene that greeted them was unsettling. Dismembered mannequin parts scattered everywhere, arms, legs, heads, and torsos strewn about, while the air was thick with the pungent smell of isoamyl alcohol used in mannequin production. Faced with this eerie tableau, police began to theorize that Jingyan might have been affected by the toxic environment. The combination of harsh chemical fumes and the grotesque appearance of the disassembled mannequins could have caused him to hallucinate, mistaking plastic parts for human remains. However, Jingyan, his body trembling, insisted on pointing to a specific section of the concrete floor, maintaining that the bodies were buried beneath. Initially, the floor showed no obvious signs of having been disturbed. But while everyone was still puzzling over this, one detective made a crucial discovery in the bathroom, a pile of what appeared to be freshly excavated soil. Additionally, under the display case upstairs, they found cement and fine sand, materials that had nothing to do with mannequin production and were typically only found at construction sites. When these discoveries were cross-referenced with Jingyan's testimony, investigators began to suspect his story might have merit after all. The police decided to excavate the concrete floor, bringing in 4 mortuary workers with specialized equipment to handle the task. Almost immediately, they found something disturbing. The steel reinforcement bars beneath the concrete had been deliberately cut. Then, at about 8 inches deep, they made a chilling discovery: a fabric glove. The atmosphere at the scene grew increasingly tense. As they reached a depth of roughly 20 to 28 inches, the workers encountered something unusual. When they lifted it out, they realized it was human hair. Immediately after, the unmistakable odor of decomposition filled the air, confirming the investigators' worst fears. There were indeed bodies buried under the floor, From this point on, the excavation proceeded with extreme caution to preserve evidence and protect the integrity of any remains for future forensic examination. At 11 p.m., they uncovered the first body, a woman with no visible external injuries. Just 30 minutes later, they found the second body, a male. Unlike the first victim, this body showed clear signs of violence. The face and body were bruised and swollen, with distinct strangulation marks on the neck. The bodies had been stacked in the pit, with the female victim placed on top of the male. Fortunately, both victims' faces were intact enough for identification, confirming Jingen's story. The female victim was Xu Huan, Wenmin's wife, and the male was Chen Guofang, an apprentice at the factory. The medical examiner's report revealed that both victims had died approximately 2 days earlier, with asphyxiation as the cause of death. However, one peculiar detail caught the investigators' attention. Xu Huan's head had been shaved, and the hair they'd found during excavation was confirmed to be hers. This raised an intriguing question. If Jingen's account was true, and Wenmin was the killer, why would he shave his wife's head? As police prepared to arrest Wenmin, they realized they'd made a critical error in their investigation protocol. Their initial skepticism of Jingen's story had led them to skip securing the suspect before searching the premises. As a result, by the time they confirmed the truth of his claims, Wenmin had already fled. Even more shocking were the rumors circulating in the Wanhua district. Local residents claimed that during the excavation, Wenmin himself had been among the onlookers, disguised and watching as police unearthed his victims. In the chaos of the crowded crime scene, officers had failed to recognize him. This revelation was a devastating blow to the police department's reputation. Police immediately issued a nationwide warrant for Wenmin's arrest. To understand the motivation behind the murders, investigators began digging into the backgrounds of both the perpetrator and his victims. Wenmin, 31, despite lacking formal education, possessed remarkable artistic talent, particularly in mannequin crafting, and had built a solid reputation in the fashion industry. His wife, Xu Huan, 1 year his junior, had met him at a billiard hall. They had 3 children together, but their marriage had been marked by frequent arguments and tension. The male victim, Chen Guofang, was just 18 years old and had nearly completed his apprenticeship when he was killed. The investigation began with interviews of 3 apprentices who were on leave from Shikai Art Garden. While none could explain their employer's motive for murder, they revealed a crucial detail. Recently, Wenmin had discovered 2,000 NDT, about $65, missing and had a violent argument with his wife. The dispute had escalated beyond verbal abuse. He had physically attacked her and shaved her head. 3 days before the murders, on the evening of August 3rd, Wenmin had abruptly announced he knew who had taken the money and gave all employees a week's vacation. The apprentices had barely begun their unexpected break when police appeared at their doors. Finding the apprentices' information limited, investigators expanded their inquiry to the victims' families, hoping to uncover any underlying conflicts with Wenmin. The first stop was Guofang's family. They revealed that before his death, Guofang had confided that Wenmin suspected him of having an affair with his wife and had beaten him. Despite his parents urging to quit, Guofang had insisted on his innocence, believing that suddenly leaving would only intensify his employer's suspicions. Next, investigators approached Wenmin's family, hoping to gather more insight. Their conversation with Wang Zhenjie, Wenmin's sister, provided crucial information about the family's troubled past. Zhenjie disclosed that 4 years earlier, while Wenmin was away for military training, his wife Xu Huan had begun an affair with a neighboring pharmacist who had a questionable reputation. What made matters worse was that the pharmacist had convinced Xu Huan to give Wenmin a drug that, while not lethal, would render him impotent. During this period, Wenmin had noticed severe problems with his sexual function, but couldn't understand why. Despite consulting numerous doctors, he found no solution to his condition. A year later, the pharmacist tried to exploit Xu Huan again. This time, he attempted to convince her to work as a hostess at a bar in Kaohsiung, promising good money. Xu Huan firmly refused, ending their relationship. This incident seemed to be a turning point, making her realize the gravity of her actions. She eventually decided to confess everything to her husband. Upon learning the truth, Wenmin immediately reported the pharmacist to the police, resulting in appropriate legal consequences for his actions. However, even after justice was served, the betrayal continued to haunt Wenmin. Zhenjie also revealed another significant detail. Before disappearing, Wenmin had borrowed about 5,000 NDT, about $165, from her. She had given him the money without hesitation. With these new pieces of information, investigators began forming a clearer picture of the case. They theorized that Wenmin's trauma from his wife's past infidelity had led him to suspect a relationship between her and Guofeng. This paranoia could have been the primary motivation for both murders. While this theory seemed plausible, it remained speculative. The police's most urgent task was still locating Wenmin. Initially, police were confident about capturing him quickly. They had 3 reasons for this optimism. First, Wenmin had no known connections to organized crime. Second, he had fled with only 5,000 NDT. And third, Taiwan's island geography made escape particularly challenging. However, another complicated aspect of the case demanded attention: Jingen's role in the murders. As both an alleged accomplice and the informant, his motives required careful scrutiny. Why did he choose to confess? Was he truly coerced, or had he been a willing participant in the murders who later turned informant due to some dispute? To resolve these questions, the police split their investigation into 2 teams. One focused on tracking down Wenmin, while the other concentrated on interrogating Jingen more thoroughly. During questioning, Jingen provided a detailed account of the fateful night. According to him, around 10 p.m. on August 4th, Wenmin had suddenly appeared at his house in a state of distress. Wenmin claimed his wife had been missing for 2 days, and that despite reporting it to the police, there had been no leads. He said he planned to search for her in Taichung and asked Jingen to accompany him. Without much thought, Jingen agreed. The 2 men rode a motorcycle to Taipei Station. Once there, Wenmin suddenly remembered he needed to retrieve something important from the factory. They returned to Chikai Art Garden. However, as soon as they entered, Wenmin locked the iron gate and revealed the horrifying truth. His wife had done something unforgivable, and he had killed both her and an apprentice. He needed Jingen's help disposing of the bodies. Jingen claimed he panicked and tried to flee, but Wenmin threatened him, saying the bodies were under the bed and he wouldn't hesitate to add a third. With no escape route, Jingen said he was forced to help drag the bodies from the bedroom to the basement, placing them in a pre-dug hole. They began filling the hole, a task that lasted until dawn. When daylight broke, Jingen thought his nightmare was over and asked to leave, but Wenmin wasn't finished. He forced Jingen to accompany him to buy cement, quick-drying agents, and isoamyl alcohol to refinish the floor and erase all evidence of their crime. While Wenmin was busy mixing cement, Jingen seized his chance to escape. Following his survival instincts, he ran straight home and hid in his wardrobe, not daring to make a sound. Wenmin searched his house, but fortunately failed to find him and eventually left. However, Jingen realized his home wasn't safe. By afternoon, he fled to his brother's house seeking refuge. Too terrified to explain coherently what had happened, he just frantically urged his brother to call the police. Before his brother could react, Wenmin appeared at their doorstep. Jingen was forced to escape through the back door and ran straight to the police station. Although Jingen's testimony seemed credible and was validated by the discovery of the bodies exactly where he indicated, deeper analysis revealed several troubling inconsistencies. The first major discrepancy concerned the physical disparity between the men. Jingen was a blacksmith with a large, robust build and considerable strength. In contrast, Wenmin was relatively slight, standing only about 5 feet 3 inches. Given this physical advantage, it seemed implausible that Jingen would be so easily intimidated by Wenmin. Another suspicious element was the sequence of events. In disposing of the bodies, digging the hole was arguably the most challenging part, yet Wenmin had completed this alone. This raised the question: why would he need help with the relatively easier tasks of moving and burying the bodies? Furthermore, involving an outsider like Jingyan seemed counterintuitive, essentially creating an unnecessary witness to his crimes. Confronted with these inconsistencies, police questioned Jingyan again. This time, he dramatically changed his story. Jingyan admitted he hadn't been coerced at all. The truth was that Wenmin had promised him money, and in a moment of greed, he had willingly helped conceal the bodies. However, he claimed that shortly after, his conscience got the better of him, prompting his confession to the police. During their deeper investigation, police discovered that Jingyan actually suffered from mental health issues. Years earlier, he had sustained a head injury in a car accident that affected his nervous system. While he could maintain basic daily activities and social interactions, his thought processes and manner of expression were noticeably different from the norm. Furthermore, investigators learned there was a family connection between the two men. Jingyan's brother was Wenmin's brother-in-law, and Wenmin had even introduced Jingyan to his wife. Considering Jingyan's mental condition and the family ties between them, it made more sense why Wenmin might have chosen him for help. However, this also raised a new concern. Given Jingyan's mental state, how reliable were his statements? This made finding Wenmin even more crucial. He was the key to unraveling the entire case. Police were so confident about catching Wenmin that they didn't even offer a reward for his capture. However, as the investigation progressed, things became increasingly complicated. After searching throughout Taipei and expanding their investigation to Taichung, police still couldn't locate Wenmin. Just as they were growing frustrated with the lack of progress, a new development made the case even more complex. A man named Yang Ganquan rushed to the police station to report that his wife, Liu Wang, had disappeared and was likely with Wenmin. Yang's family ran a wig-making business and had frequent dealings with Wenmin's mannequin factory, which was how the families knew each other. Liu Wang, 30, was a mother of 5, with her youngest still nursing. Ganquan had 2 reasons to suspect his wife's disappearance was connected to Wenmin. First, they had disappeared on the same day, and second, neighbors had witnessed Liu Wang getting on Wenmin's motorcycle before they rode away. Ganquan feared his wife might have been coerced or even kidnapped. This report opened a new avenue of investigation. When police searched the Chikai art garden again, they discovered intimate photographs of Liu Wang among Wenmin's belongings. The photos appeared to have been taken with Liu Wang's consent, suggesting their relationship was more than casual. Further investigation revealed that when Liu Wang left, she had taken her ID and some cash with her. Based on interviews with her children, police concluded she hadn't been kidnapped or coerced, but had willingly fled with Wenmin. This discovery made the police's task even more challenging. Now they weren't just looking for a fugitive murderer, but one accompanied by a willing companion. Throughout August, the fugitive couple became Taiwan's most talked-about story. The public was eager to see them captured and brought to justice. However, their whereabouts remained a mystery. Rumors placed them everywhere from southern Taiwan to the central regions, and even in Sanzhong. Police had no concrete leads. Initially, investigators thought that by blocking their access to bank accounts and preventing family assistance, the 5,000 new Taiwan dollars Wenmin had taken would soon force them out of hiding. Police warnings were published in multiple newspapers, stating that anyone harboring the couple would be charged with aiding and abetting criminals. However, these measures failed to draw them out, leaving law enforcement increasingly frustrated. On August 16th, 10 days after the murders, police intercepted a letter from Wenmin to his father. The front of the letter, written in Chinese, appealed for sympathy for his 5 children and requested his father give Ganquan about 2,000 NDT for living expenses. However, on the back was a message in Japanese saying, "Don't give the money." This was clearly a deception by Wenmin, taking advantage of Liu Wang's inability to read Japanese to secretly instruct his father to withhold the money. Rather than delivering the letter, police released its contents to the press through reporters, hoping to create discord between the fugitives. Police investigation had shown that Liu Wang had been home with her children during the murders and wasn't involved in the killings. They hoped that exposing Wenmin's deception would convince her that fleeing with him had been a mistake and persuade her to return home. In addition, the police also let Liu Wang's husband Ganquan publish an open letter in the newspaper. Ganquan promised in the newspaper that if Liu Wang returned, everything would be forgiven. Their eldest daughter also wrote a letter herself saying, "Mom, my sister and brother are both crying. I miss you so much." However, these efforts did not move Liu Wang. Wenmin and Liu Wang were still missing. Thus, the police's efforts had not yet yielded any important clues. Many people began to question the police's ability. On August 24th, with no other choice, the police offered a reward of 30,000 NDT, about $750, for anyone who could provide Wenmin's location, which could lead to his arrest. However, Liu Wang's neighbors pointed out that the photo of Liu Wang released by the police was an old photo taken after the birth of her fifth child, when she looked chubby, while now she had lost a lot of weight. Such photos were of no help at all in the search. The police then revealed another important feature of Wenmin, saying that he had a strange disease and needed to drink herbal tea regularly in the summer. This information caused herbal tea stalls across Taiwan to be packed with people, hoping to find Wenmin and receive a reward of 30,000 NDT. Since the reward announcement, the police have received more than 160 tips, but unfortunately none of them were useful. Just when everyone thought that the case might become a suspended sentence, on August 30th, there was a dramatic turn. Wenmin suddenly sent a letter to the United Press. In the letter, he described his difficult life as a fugitive and expressed his strong desire to return to his family. He also emphasized in the letter that he did not intentionally kill his wife Xu Huan and practitioner Guo Fang. He admitted to assaulting his wife, but claimed that he did not realize that her injuries were serious enough to require emergency treatment, which ultimately led to her death. Wenmin also said that if the Lianhe newspaper published his letter, he and Liu Wang would turn themselves in to the Criminal Investigation Department the next day. The Lianhe newspaper published Wenmin's letter early in the morning of August 31st. That evening, around 11 o'clock, Wenmin and Liu Wang did indeed appear. The two took a taxi to the police station door, held hands, and turned themselves in. From the photos in the newspapers the next day, the two looked clean and tidy, not like they had just run away. Especially Liu Wang, she clung tightly to Wenmin's side. It turned out that during the time they were on the run, Wenmin and Liu Wang had been hiding in a small house near the Nanmen police station in Hsinchu City. Wenmin even borrowed a bicycle, wore a conical hat, and sold herbal tea along the road every day. While everyone was waiting at the herbal tea stalls, hoping to catch Wenmin and receive the 30,000 NDT reward, they did not expect that Wenmin was hiding right in front of them. The two men surrendered, finally making the police breathe a sigh of relief, but the problems of the case were not over yet. When Wenmin was questioned, he admitted that he had indeed assaulted his wife, leading to her death due to not being able to receive timely medical treatment, but firmly denied any involvement in Guo Fang's death. On the contrary, he insisted that the person who killed Guo Fang was Jinggen, the person who had initially reported him. Wenmin recalled that a week before the incident, on July 24th, he discovered that 2,000 NDT was missing from his pocket. Suspecting that his wife had stolen it, he began searching everywhere and found a bottle of perfume in a drawer. He immediately became angry, thinking that this bottle of perfume was a gift from some lover to his wife, thus confirming that his wife must have had an affair. In a fit of rage, Wenmin used rope to tie up his wife, beat her, and interrogated her. Not only that, he also cut Xu Huan's hair to prevent her from going out to meet other people. After this violence, Xu Huan was seriously injured and had to stay in bed. On July 31st, practitioner Guo Fang brought food to the injured owner Xu Huan. Wenmin happened to see the two whispering to each other. He immediately suspected that they had an illicit relationship. Therefore, he immediately tied up Guo Fang, beat her, and interrogated her. So, what did Xu Huan and Guo Fang really talk about that day? According to Guo Fang's family's testimony, when they saw Guo Fang injured that day, they asked what happened. He explained that when he brought food to his boss that day, she secretly told him that Wenmin suspected him of stealing 2,000 new Taiwan dollars and beat her every day. If this continued, she would be beaten to death. So she asked Guo Fang to help her seek help from outside. Unfortunately, this whispering conversation was caught by Wenmin, causing him to be brutally tortured by his boss. After hearing it, his family advised him not to go to work anymore, but Guofang insisted that he was innocent and decided to go back and explain clearly to Wenmin. When he confronted Wenmin again, in order to prove his innocence, Guofang told him that the person who really had an illicit relationship with Xu Huan was not him, but Wenmin's brother-in-law, Jinggen's brother. At this time, Jinggen was also present at the scene. Hearing this, he flew into a rage and immediately refuted Guofang. "You are the one who has a relationship with your sister-in-law, and you still want to blame my brother." In a fit of rage, Jinggen beat Guofang up. In order to prevent Guofang from screaming, he also covered the victim's mouth while punching and kicking. Seeing this, Xu Huan quickly spoke up to stop him, making Wenmin even angrier and turning to beat his wife. During the fight, Guofang stopped breathing, and Xu Huan died shortly after. Wenmin and Jinggen realized that they had both committed the murder, so they went to buy digging tools and cement together and disposed of the body together. Wenmin admitted that the whole incident from beginning to end was done by him and Jinggen together, and that he had not killed the person alone and then asked Jinggen to help dispose of the body. However, he did not expect that Jinggen would report it to the police the next day. Wenmin recounted that when he saw the police and reporters rushing into the store, he realized that he could no longer hide it. At this time, he hurriedly ran to his lover Liu Wang, asking if he had killed someone and needed to escape, wondering if she wanted to go with him. Liu Wang agreed without hesitation, took her ID card and some cash, and set off on the run with him. After reading the newspaper reports on the case, Wenmin felt that the press had reported it seriously, so he decided to turn himself in. He asserted that the truth was not as described in the press. These statements were completely different from Jinggen's. Jinggen claimed that he only participated in burying the body, while Wenmin said that Jinggen killed Guofang, and then the two of them disposed of the body together. However, Wenmin's statement also had many unreasonable points. The forensic report indicated that Guofang died from strangulation. If Wenmin said that Guofang was beaten to death, then how should the traces of strangulation on the body be explained? This contradiction became a key point in the subsequent trial. On October 18, 1967, the case was brought to trial by the Taipei District Court. Although Wenmin insisted that Xu Huan's death was an accident, the court did not accept this justification. Therefore, Wenmin's death sentence was almost certain. The main point of contention in the case was whether the whistleblower Jinggen actually killed Guofang. In the first instance, the Taipei District Court held that the deaths of Xu Huan and Guofang were both caused by Wang Wenmin, who suspected the two of having an illicit relationship and had the intention to kill. Jinggen was only forced to participate in burying the body, so he was declared innocent and released. However, the prosecutor did not agree with this verdict and appealed. Over the next 9 years, Jinggen's verdict alternated between guilty and innocent. It was not until March 16, 1976, that the Supreme Court made its final judgment declaring Jinggen guilty of murder. The decision was based on the fact that Jinggen had told other inmates in Taipei prison 2 sentences. "I wish murder would only be a life sentence," and "because Chen Guofang was nosy, I strangled him." In addition, the judge pointed out that during the course of the incident, Jinggen had many opportunities to escape, but he did not choose to leave halfway and only ran to his brother's house after he had finished disposing of the body. The judge thought that if he was truly innocent, why didn't he escape earlier? This showed that he was not completely innocent. Based on these doubts, the court finally found him guilty of intentional homicide and sentenced him to life in prison. As for Wenmin, during the 9 years of trial, his death sentence was always upheld, and he was executed by firing squad on the 4th day after the final verdict. However, at that time, the public was no longer interested in Wenmin's fate. Everyone's attention turned to the woman who had run away with Wenmin, Liu Wang. Everyone wanted to know why a mother of 5 children would abandon her family to follow a man who had just killed his wife and fled. Through investigation, everyone learned that Liu Wang and Wenmin had known each other since childhood and were childhood sweethearts. They shared a common interest in painting, and their personalities were very compatible. Liu Wang later married Ganquan, but their marriage was not a happy one. Just a few years after the wedding, Ganquan had squandered all the family's assets. Within 7 years, Liu Wang gave birth to 4 girls and 1 boy. When she had few children, the family could still afford to hire a maid, but when the children grew larger, they could no longer afford to hire anyone. At that time, Liu Wang had to both weave wigs to earn money and take care of 5 young children. Although Ganquan said that she was busy working all day, in reality the economic burden of the family almost fell on Liu Wang's shoulders. Under the double pressure of emotions and economics, after giving birth to her 5th child, Liu Wang proposed a divorce to Yang Ganquan and was willing to pay 50,000 new Taiwan dollars, approximately $1,600 in compensation. However, this proposal was rejected by Ganquan. It was in this situation that Liu Wang accidentally met Wen Min again. Wen Min kept praising Liu Wang's talent, making her feel great spiritual support. Perhaps it was this comfort that made Liu Wang decide to run away with Wen Min. In the end, Liu Wang was sentenced to 5 months in prison for family sabotage. In fact, she could have avoided prison because she had no involvement in Wen Min's murder. After the two turned themselves in, her husband, Yang Ganquan, publicly announced that he would forgive her and not sue her if she returned home. However, after listening to her husband, Liu Wang still chose to stay in prison instead of returning. Faced with this situation, Ganquan felt humiliated and decided to sue both Liu Wang and Wen Min for family sabotage. In the end, Liu Wang would rather go to prison than return to Ganquan. What was even more shocking was that while on the run, Liu Wang became pregnant with Wen Min's child. After being released from prison, she gave birth to the child in the Wang family and gave it to the Wang family to raise. After that, Liu Wang did not return to Ganquan, but quietly disappeared into the crowd. After Liu Wang was sentenced to 5 months, public opinion about her changed dramatically. Initially, during the time the two were on the run, the public was very harsh towards Liu Wang. Some even threatened to lock her in a pig pen or stone her to death if they caught her. But then, sympathetic and understanding opinions began to appear, and some women even expressed admiration for her. Men sympathized with her because she was pregnant when she went to court, always bowing her head in silence before the media, looking very pitiful. Women sympathized with her because many had also experienced similar hardships, being suffocated by life, being tied up by children, and having to deal with a husband who was both incompetent and heartless. Therefore, some people believe that, although Wen Min was not a good man, he became Liu Wang's opportunity to escape from her unhappy marriage. Perhaps Liu Wang just wanted to take this opportunity to live her true self for once. So when Wen Min invited her, she resolutely followed. Even though she knew that this was an adventure that could fail, she still chose to pursue her own happiness. Of course, there are also people who think that as a mother of 5 children, her choice to give up her children to pursue personal happiness is an extremely selfish act. So what do you think about this? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss other exciting cases. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.